going?
It's going well. How's it going with you?
Good. You're like peeking over the.
There we go.
Yeah, of course.
All right.
There we go.
Reverse camera again.
Maybe you should just do the whole thing from that. You just be like this sort of
Yeah,
voice.
just like here's my TV. Here's my little banana guy sculpture thing that I did years ago. I'll have to post that at some point.
Good evening.
Good
evening and afternoon from the US. Where in the US are you, Jonathan?
I'm based in Chicago.
Cool, man.
I'm based in, like I'm I'm officially in Chicago. I've actually been here for 11 years, and I still feel like I just moved here because I was used to moving so much. So,
oh, really? Where are you from originally then?
Oh, I mean, technically I'm from a Chicago suburb, but we moved, I just moved around so much over the course of my early time, so it's still weird to be here. And it's like, oh yeah, where are you from? Chicago-ish. Been here long enough, but yeah, I lived in the Boston, Las Vegas, parts of Texas, Tucson, Arizona, all over the place.
Cool, man.
You may or may not know where any of those places are at. Now I'm thinking of it.
Did you say Tucson?
Tucson, Arizona, yeah.
Oh man, I love Arizona. My grandparents used to have a place there. In Green Valley, if you know where that is. So I used to go.
Do sort of. Yeah.
It's like quite close to the Mexican border. So all through my childhood, I grew up in Canada, so we'd go down there, and Arizona is just such a stunning place. It's quite strange.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Place, yeah.
It's boring as sin if you're a kid, though. I mean, it's beautiful. It definitely influenced my my like landscape stuff because I love noodling on like rocks and dirt and trees and not a lot of trees out there, but like cactus and things like that, and like desert area and scenery. It's gorgeous, and there's no other place like that. And,
totally, man. It does something to your body, doesn't it? You just like.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't survive in it now after being in the Midwest. The U.S. Midwest for so long now. It's like everything's freezing and humid and weird, and out there it's just dry heat. And in Las Vegas, it's like insanely hot. And so, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd die of heat stroke like immediately, even in the winter.
No, we don't want that.
I always wonder if I would have stayed out in the desert, if I would have been able to just like survive that. But yeah, it's weird. It's really weird.
Well, dude,
we've got
the whole time we're going to talk about the weather. It's going to be awesome.
Well, it's an incredibly
What's the weather like over there?
It's the most British conversation we could possibly be having. So it's making me feel very at home. It's making me feel very comfortable. Thank you.
Good. As long as everybody's comfortable.
The first thing we need to say, though, guys, is that
watching right now. So I just want to very quickly, for those watching, thank you very much for tuning in. This is, I guess, episode 3 of our Meet the Makers little mini Insta Live series that we're doing. I'm Liam, one of the co-founders of Running Ground Studios. This man below me here is...
I'm Ben. I'm the other co-founder and the writer of Burger.
And this guy over here is Jonathan La Mantia. You want to introduce yourself, sir? Crack on.
No, that's good.
Okay.
Well,
The awesome, the incredible, super talented Jonathan La Mantia, who is responsible for this variant cover of
That thing.
Number 1, this wonderful piece of artwork. And we are very, very honored to have him join us this evening and pick his brains about the incredible work that he does. Super stuff. So thank you very much, first of all, for
thanks.
chatting to us.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for getting me on board.
I was kind of like stalking you for a while, to be honest. I was insta stalking you. I thought your work was so amazing. I was like, when do I pounce?
Honestly, I've gotten several things from folks like that, and of course, like I wrote down. I meant to write down a little list of people I wanted to give a shout out to, and I didn't get a chance to. So I'm gonna have to like remember at the end of this all the people I want to mention. But I've had some really great luck with people just dropping me a note and be like, hey, would you be interested in working on something? And most of the time I'm able to catch the comments, but like Instagram comments being what they are, like I think I didn't see yours until like weeks later. So it was like somebody sends me a DM and like, look in the other folder. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, it comes through requested, doesn't it? I've had that as well, and you just miss it sometimes.
If I'm not following somebody, it'll show up in the other folder or in the like super other folder where it's like, this is probably spam or something like that. And I think yours was just in my other folder, and I was like, oh okay, I should look into this. So
yeah, well, I'm so glad you did.
Thankful that you did.
I think
to you. Hey, big haze to you, man. Thanks for joining in. How you doing, man? So we got people.
We should say as well that we're gonna, if you have any questions, we'll have a little time at the end, right?
Yeah, 100%. Anybody watching, drop us some questions.
As long as I put aside whatever, so I'm good to hang. I was gonna try to draw, so I'll try to draw and chat at the same time. So I have a little
impressive.
Yeah,
most impressive.
It's good. Least impressive drawing though.
I think you were the one that coined the spaghetti fingers first, right? I think that's why I basically nicked. I think you said it just in one of your posts.
Did I?
You're working on like.
Oh yeah, no, I said it was getting the pasta maker going.
Getting the pasta maker going. Yeah, that was it.
That's because it's I don't know who coined the term noodling on details, but like that's definitely a thing that I do, which is sort of a mix of like a derogatory, depending on who's using it, because it's just sort of like, oh, you're just noodling on something instead of like actually doing something productive with the composition. So I don't know. I mean, I always like just spending time on details and noodling. It's therapeutic in its way.
I was going to say that's something that really comes across in your work. It's incredibly detailed. It's super fine detail. Is that exhausting?
So I do have to take a lot of breaks. I have this thing now that I wear. Last year I started getting like really bad wrist pains because I would do sketch cards, and here's the latest one. So like this guy, little tiny guy, and I can pack a lot of detail, and what I like doing with these is they kind of limit how much detail I can put in and how much time I can spend on them. Because on a 11 by 17, as you can see, the cover is an 11 by 17. Oh, I have the cover actually.
Oh yeah, I can see the original. Amazing.
I can see the original. Wicked.
I'm totally prepared for this, obviously. But the like original is an 11 by 17 piece. So I can really sink a lot of time into some of these, and it means that I can spend upwards of 30 hours, 40 hours. The kind of nice thing about doing a time lapse is like I actually get to see how long I spent on something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just the only thing I really wish I would have done a time lapse of this thing.
Wow.
So this is the original.
Oh my God.
That
was
mind blowing.
And I can, I really, I don't do this for like everything, but the stuff I've been doing lately is kind of wall to wall packed in detail.
It looks incredible. It looks absolutely incredible.
Thank you. Nice. No, I'm so happy with how it came out. And honestly, I'm really happy with the color too. And I'm gonna go. Hopefully, everybody's happy with it.
Well, it seems pretty popular.
Super popular.
I mean, we have to say as well. We haven't even said that Burger's funded.
Yeah, that's right. So we're done. We don't have to do anything else.
Yes,
everybody's good. No need to promote this at all anymore.
Well Well,
for all those watching, there is still plenty of Jonathan La Mantia goodies available. If you do want to go and check out the Kickstarter, you can get variant copies of the comic, and also we have some super cool tees with it printed on, and yeah, there's lots of really good, awesome stuff. So check out the link in the Running Ground bio, and yeah, go and check out all the sweet goodies. But we are officially
operators are standing by for your orders.
So how long have you been? Have you always been doing art, Jonathan? Like, is that
honestly, in some capacity, as long as I can remember, I used to draw weird stuff as a kid.
Were you one of those kids sort of scratching on the desk?
Probably. I don't really remember what like the kind of stuff. I used to build a lot more. Like I used to do like paper sculpture things, and I've always liked doing art in some capacity. So I have like a lot of, well, originally I wanted to do special effects for films, and then I found out I was allergic to latex, which now isn't as big of a deal, but back in the 90s, it was sort of, before shows like Face Off or, the plethora of awareness to the special effects industry, there was like the one book on makeup effects, and then there was like the Tom Savini stuff, and I wasn't even familiar with Tom Savini's published work or his school. There was like the Joe Bleskow School of Makeup Effects, and that was pretty much it. And when I found out I was allergic to latex, I was like, oh, I guess I can't do that anymore. But I used to do like prop making and things like that, and working at haunted houses. So I've always been into like horror as a thing, and I always wanted to be doing something with that. But then I got into, like, immediately went from I want to direct, which is I think the thing that every young person does is like, well, I want to make movies, so I want to be a director.
Naturally, yeah. I mean, I went to drama school with Liam. That's how I started. That's why I came over to England. But at that time, when I was sort of 16, 17, 18, what I thought was going to happen was that I was going to be an actor, and then I'd be in some films, and I'd probably transition to directing a little bit like Mel Gibson. And that seemed totally plausible to me as a 17-year-old.
No, absolutely. Honestly,
it was actually going to happen by the time you were 25.
Yeah, of course.
When the director thing kind of fell through after I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease early in my 20s, and then I was like, okay, well, I probably can't do directing, so I'll try acting now. So it's sort of the same thing, but it was like, all right, well, I still want to do film, and I want to do something. And this whole time, I'm always drawing something. Like, I always doing art in some capacity. But filmmaking and horror especially has always been part of my DNA. And like I think it's just like I used to watch a lot of Tales from the Crypt and horror movies at too young of an age. So you gotta get influenced by this, like, I want to do this. Whatever this is, I want to do that.
Yeah. What were your favorites?
What was the seminal horror that sort of
honestly
for you, if you like?
One of the things that like the horror movie that always stands out for me is Night of the Demons, because I saw that and it just blew my brains. Because it's so off the wall, and it's really campy, but as a kid, it's something that, like, oh my God, this is nuts. And have you guys seen?
No, I don't know it.
Oh my God, you guys seen Night of the Demons? I mean, there's certainly other movies. Like, I saw, I think the thing that made me want to be a special effects person was Jurassic Park, which is funny because it's mostly CG. But that and Terminator 2. So, like, early 90s, big budget sci-fi movies that had, like, really big effects pieces, like the hand ripping of Terminator, specifically Terminator 2. Because I saw that in the theater and I was way too young to see that. It was just like, holy shit, this is insane. this guy just ripped his hand off, and it's just a metal arm.
My one for that was RoboCop.
I was
saw
literally
that
about to say the same thing,
way
dude.
too early.
Yeah, I wish I would have seen that.
Still, I mean, such a good film though. I watched it recently again for the first time. Again for the first time. I watched it again, like I hadn't seen it maybe in 20 years or something, and it's a genuinely good film.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
definitely stands up.
Yeah, no, I mean that honestly, all of Verhoeven's like, it's funny because I love that era of him just being like, yeah, you can make movies for Americans about Americans who are just completely oblivious to what this is saying.
Totally sad. Yes, that's
and like 20 years later, it's like, yeah, or 30 years later now, it's just like, yeah, we're still doing the same shit.
Yeah.
I just want to take a second. We have Aqua Tofana with us, who is the first patron saint of Burger, has joined us on the live chat. So we want to a massive shout out to the first patron saint. All hail the first patron saint of Burger. She says, your brave face started living rent-free in my mind since the sneak peeks and got me to wonder what the hell is going on over here. Next thing I know, boom, patron saint. Massive love. You are one of the hugest reasons why we are over the line with the Kickstarter. You are an absolute legend. Thank you so much for your support. Yeah, she's here.
Yeah, I second that. Thank you so much.
Amazing.
That's great.
Yep.
The first. Oh yeah, you didn't know you were the first. You are the first and the original. You're the OG of Burger. That's right. Super dope.
Your other big love is metal music, right?
Yep.
Liam and I were just talking about this before. We have to admit we don't really know a lot about metal, so we can't get into that too much.
That's all right. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things. Like I always like anything, like horror movies, like comics especially. Like if you get into conversations with people who are 100% like living, breathing this thing. There's no way I could ever feel as knowledgeable. But I love talking to people like that because I learn so much. But it's still the kind of thing, like with metal music, there is always going to be something for me to learn. And like movies. And I try to approach everything like I love this stuff, but I've not been able to live it the same way that a lot of people have. Largely, I'm just not built for metal shows in the same way. I was a big Nine Inch Nails fan, and I got to see them live a couple of times. And the last time I did, I was like, oh my God, I'm in such pain. But I've been fortunate that like I've been able to get to work with a couple of bands doing work for them, and anytime somebody wants to work with me, I get to check out their music, and it's like, this is fantastic.
We have a message here from Sketchy Scribbles who says exactly that. She's a big metal fan, and your art reminds her of some bands' album covers. You've worked with a few bands over the years, right?
It's one of those things, like the way I draw, how I draw is really like a lot of the stuff is just kind of coming out of me. And I feel like there's this connective tissue with a lot of, like filmmakers, artists, people in metal. Metal especially there's just a lot of emotion that kind of flows. And it can be really difficult to sort of get into, because it's raw, and I think for me, like good metal music. I mean, I appreciate a lot of it. I appreciate all of it. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's not really my thing, but I love where it's coming from. I love the fact that it's just like trying to communicate emotion, and for me, like that's where I lack in structure, I try to make up for with emotional content. Because I like not going to art school, I didn't have the background of like, this is how this is supposed to look. This is how this should look. So for me, it's just like, this is how I want it to look. And this is the emotional impact that I hope it has, because this is how I'm feeling working on it. Like the piece for the burger cover, it's like, there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of how I'm feeling about social media, about what the book is saying, about what the state of things. And, you know, that state changes, but it's also just like at the time how I'm feeling about something. It's like, this is, you know, there's a lot going on. And if I'm able to kind of meditate on that while I'm noodling, and I like being able to do that with art. And I like being able to do that with bands and projects that are like, you know, like we're wanting to say something about, Carcosa, the band that I'm doing some work with recently. Like, they are great because like they're connected to that thing. It's not just about, you know, like, you know, like having fun, getting drunk, just doing stuff, which I always appreciate, like fun rock. Just like, this is stuff that's like, you know, just having fun, having a good time. But it's also stuff that's like talking about real world issues, talking about emotional issues, being how you're feeling, the way of the world, like how you're getting through the day. And some of it can be just kind of an abstract, through like creating a world of horror, a world of science fiction.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that.
In metaphor.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because kind of that's one of the big things about Burger that I've been trying to play with, is trying to house something that I think is, not to kind of swing it back clunkily, but
no,
it really is an attempt. Whether or not I'm achieving it, I don't know, but it was an attempt to kind of dig into some things that are really concerning to me, not like some whispers of things that I see within myself. Not obviously, I'm not like, you know, I'm not Burger, but this kind of, you know, but you know, this kind of like kind of internet obsession and spending so much time online and toxic internet cultures, and the conspiratorial mind. And there's all these kind of, you know, toxic masculinity and the hard right and incel culture and all these kind of quite dark subcultures that are I think threatening our society at the moment. But I also wanted to make an entertaining piece of horror set within a kind of B movie kind of pulpy aesthetic. And I don't know whether whether it works. I think it does. I think it's great, but it's a tightrope that you're kind of walking, isn't it? To try to like imbue something with something that matters to you and with some meaning, but at the same time entertain.
And I mean, like RoboCop. RoboCop is like a really great example of, and this is something that RoboCop shouldn't work. You know, like you hear about how it was made, how, you know, the different versions of the script, how it's, you know, largely a Judge Dredd ripoff. I mean, like there's stuff in RoboCop that is so on the nose, and like if it were in anybody else's hands, it wouldn't have worked. Or it wouldn't have worked the same way. It would have been like basically the Stallone Judge Dredd. You know, it's like there's a lot to love about that movie, but it is not a good movie. You know, like props to all of the aesthetics in that movie. Like the look of that is fantastic, but it is not a good script. It's not, you know, it's a fun movie though. But it's something that if you have somebody who really cares about the feeling, the emotional state of things. And I think it is very difficult to do that in a comic. I mean, it's difficult to do that with anything that involves multiple people, because comics is a joint collaborative medium. Filmmaking is that. Like you sort of have to let go of what you want it to be and kind of allow it to be.
But that's been like the most exciting part for me, you know, like to be able to collaborate. Like, I mean, I work in film, so I'm used to collaboration, but there's something different about collaborating with illustrators. I've never done that before. Collaborating with you, although your work is a little, you know, the variant was kind of, you were working really in your own way, but
which I appreciate that, by the way. I think it's difficult to sort of like give like, here, just do your own thing.
Yeah, but that's why your own thing is amazing. So I felt more than comfortable with that. With Gorklum, it was really interesting, like, because obviously we were working on the script, you know, and I wrote the script and sent it to her, and she'd send some work back, and I'd be like, totally change how I approach the script. And then there was this conversation going back and forth between me providing changes to the script and her providing sketches. And it really evolved organically as a conversation between illustrator and writer. And that was so rewarding, I have to say. Like, I've got the bug big time. This is my first comic, and I am.
Oh yeah.
Like,
no, I mean, and
yeah,
I gotta
time and again.
I gotta give a shout out to Gorkum. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Like, her art is phenomenal, and like the bar was really high on the original cover. When I got the the materials that you sent over and it had the cover on the I was kind of like, I don't know, you guys have a really good cover already. I don't know how to top this, and it really just became just a thing of like, well, I'm not going to try to beat it. I'm just going to try to do my own thing with it. And I'm really happy with the work that I did, but I think it's trying to, choose between the two. Like, they're very different, but I love her cover, and her art on it is amazing.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
On your variant cover, how did you begin the process of drawing it? Did you sit and think about what the finished piece was going to look like before you put pen to paper, or like you say, were you had the fully formed image in your mind of what it was going to?
Well, so like we went through some design ideas and kind of selected the one that I thought would be. A lot of it is like, so I'm going to be spending the next month or so on this thing. So what do I want to look at?
Yeah, totally. Like, do something that you're going to enjoy making, for sure.
Right. And there's also this. A lot of it is trying to. I'm getting a lot of feedback from my own.
Yes, so am I.
Hopefully it's not too bad.
You good?
Yeah.
We were getting a bit of feedback. It's all good.
So I think it's oh yeah, that's better. Whatever happened. The thing that's kind of tough is trying, because there's with cover work, it's infinite possibility. I mean, it's really with art in general. There's infinite possibility until you decide, and then it sort of narrows down what you're going to be working on. So for a cover, I like, trying to decide, like, what is am I going for like a more iconic imagery, just something that's really a singular image, or is it like a scene? And we talked about some scene-based things, which I think would have been really cool, but I have a lot of scene-based things that I had been working on, and I wanted to try to do something that was more of a singular image. So I was thinking of the Videodrome.
Yeah, we talked about Videodrome a lot, didn't we? Yeah.
The handgun thing, and I'm a big fan of that. And that sort of imagery. So the idea of having the phone, and I really liked that as a motif thing. And so working that out, and then like, well, I'll do that. And this is the first time I've done a photo referenced cover. That's my hand.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So did you kind of trace
you heard it here first.
Do you literally do a sort of use that as a base layer and then trace around it?
So yeah, what I did is I took a picture of an old phone that I have and my hand, and I plugged it in, and I got a picture of it, and then put that into Photoshop, and then drew around it, and then I'll print a blue line sketch of that. I did everything else pretty loose because my sketches, since I know I'm going to be spending so much time on the inking, I'll go really loose on the sketching just to save some energy.
Yeah.
And, but, I'm trying to make sure that everything looks, if I'm drawing a hand, it's got to kind of look like a hand. And I wanted to make sure that I got the lighting, looking really, really sharp. and so yeah, it's the original layer of my hand in the phone, and then doing all of the surrounding faces, and then that neat texture stuff going on.
It's quite funny, so you said you got the pasta maker going. I completely got the wrong end of the stick from that. I thought you were referring to the like kind of the bits at the bottom of the hand because they look like noodles.
Oh.
And so that's why I named it the spaghetti hand. So it's gone like kind of meta.
Well, yeah, when I saw it, I was like, that works. I mean, that background, like I always like doing
sketchy scribbles.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, really
the whole
kind
thing will be up
of
on YouTube later, so check it all out. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on, Jonathan.
like a lot of noodly detailing. Like I really like adding in because I'll do like tech work where it's just like lots of wires, lots of connective. Because one of the other things, if I would have been better at math, I would have been in computer sciences because I went to a tech vocational school for high school. But I'm really bad at coding and math. But I've always been fascinated with mechanical elements. All of Terry Gilliam's work has this sort of technological breakdown of things, and like I love working with computers. I hate working with them because they'll always I have a long love-hate relationship with them, but my workstation always sort of feels like a Terry Gilliam movie because it's just always got like wires and shit hanging out. But and Brazil is a huge influence on my aesthetics. I think it's just the bizarre, it's just bizarre. So much of the visual and being able to sort of tie all that in aesthetically with because that film in particular, and also is a great example of how editing can change the feeling of a film. There's famously 3 different versions of this thing.
I didn't know that. I don't know if I knew that.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, it's amazing too. Like they are completely different films. If nothing else, just for the endings. Like there's the Love Conquers All ending. I don't want to ruin them for you, but go back and there's a Criterion collection of Brazil, and it's all 3 versions, and there's the mood on them. It's kind of like Blade Runner in that respect, where this is a lot of Ridley Scott's just here's what that was 20th Century Fox.
Yeah,
right.
That put out Blade Runner. If I'm wrong, I'm sure somebody will correct me. But in the same way with Brazil, it's just somebody, they're they get the cut, and then they're like, no, we can't put this out.
Yeah.
And
the studio steps in.
Changes everything.
The studio steps in and is like, no, director.
Yeah. Yes. And I think I like all of the versions of Blade Runner for their own things. I like all of the versions of Brazil for their own things, and it's in the same way that watching The Keep, Michael Mann's. I don't know if you've seen The Keep. It's incredible, and it's bizarre. It's got the Tangerine Dream score, and if you've never seen The Keep, it's too bad because Michael Mann hates it so much and he wants to bury it, and you can't see it without finding an Australian bootleg copy or the one that I think they finally released. But and I think that's the interesting thing with comics, and why they're comics as a genre for people that are into film is kind of neat, because you have a little bit more control, but there's still that sense of if you give up a little bit of it, you can still make something special. You may not love it the same way that you started out wanting to tell that story, but there's still great stuff there. In all of those versions, I think that somebody could watch the Love Conquers All version of Brazil and still come away with that was an amazing movie. I would still love to make something like that. And then you find out 5-10 years later that Terry Gilliam hates that version, and that's not the version that it should be.
Well, that brings up a sort of an interesting thing about creativity in general, right? Like that you have this kind of idea of what you created and what it means, but it could mean completely different things to people, and you do have to just let go of that, don't you? As a creator,
I mean, and so with Burger, like there's that thing of like you know what your messaging will be or should be, but somebody can take it and be like, oh, I think it means this, and it's like, yeah, it's not though, but you can't really help what somebody thinks of it.
Yeah, and but I think that's what's interesting about creativity. If you can let go of that, then it has more of a life, and that's why I always kind of gravitate towards stories that are a little bit more ambiguous in their meaning. I don't love like that, like the end of, for like an example, just to bring it back to film a bit. Interstellar. I'm sorry if there are any huge Interstellar fans out there.
No, I wanted to love that movie so much.
Same, man, same. I like went in. I was just like, yes, finally, the big science fiction film we've been waiting for. Christopher Nolan, all due respect, fantastic director, obviously, amazing director. But you know, I'm a huge Kubrick fan, as most people I think are. But like, it just seems so glaringly obvious to me, like the difference in the directors there. Like that bit when he ends up in the weird kind of time dimensional 4D space.
And spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen Interstellar yet.
Sorry, spoiler alert.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
I don't feel bad about that.
Come on, that film's been out for a long time. I'm not worried.
I know.
Let me just suffice to say, they just explain the whole thing. They just explain everything to the audience. They just hold your hand.
There's no sense of.
There's no room for interpretation.
Yeah, there's no ambiguity. It is very much beating you over that, and it's stuff that is. It's like, if you have been paying attention, this is how it's been the whole film, and I think that was something that was really painful. Is it's like a magician doing the trick, and then coming off the stage, and then punching you in the face while he's telling you how he did it.
Totally. That's a really good analogy.
That's like, okay, I get it. It was cool already.
Yeah. That's so
I liked
true.
what you were doing. Stop hitting me.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's a fear. Like with Burger, that people will take it the wrong way. I certainly don't want people to think that it's that he's in any way an anti-hero. But that'll be an interesting.
It's hard. I mean, it is really hard. You can't help how people interpret something, and it is sort of that the continuous meme of like, if you are thinking that these are the heroes, you're getting the wrong thing out of it. Like if you've been trying to emulate these people or these characters in your life, like, boy, did you watch a different version of Taxi Driver than I did. And it's tough. I mean, it's like, yeah, Travis Bickle is a great character, but oh boy, you do not want to be Travis Bickle.
It's a good point. Yeah.
But, I mean, it's that thing. It's like, if you make your anti-hero, I mean, if you make your character the most interesting character in the story, that's what people are gonna see. It's like, oh yeah, so you want us to love this person. It's like, empathy and love are two different things. You can empathize with somebody who is doing bad things, but loving them in the capacity of wanting to be like that, like, I don't.
Yeah. So, like, in terms of your work, like, are you doing? Because I saw you just did another cover for. Was it?
Oh yeah. So a buddy of mine, and actually, Marcus on Nasso, who I am always needing to apologize for everybody if I mispronounce their name, and that's the way that I feel better is I also have a name that everybody mispronounces, so I'm in the same boat, so it's fine. But Marcus,
are you pronouncing it correctly?
Yes.
La Mantia?
I'm just going to say yes for however you were pronouncing it.
Okay, good.
I have no room to correct anybody with any pronunciations of any names. And honestly, I mispronounce my last name, I think, by the Italian way it should be pronounced. I say it the Midwestern Chicago accent sort of way of like the hard A. So he actually gave me my first, Marcus gave me my first variant cover job with Voracious. It's a sci-fi dinosaur cooking comic, and it's great. It's so much fun. And Jason Moore is the artist on that one, and they're doing a new book with Scout Comics called By the Horns, and By the Horns is a fantasy action story, and they've just finished the trade for that just came out last week, and Mark got me on for doing a series of bestiary covers with several of the different creatures, monsters that are in this world that he and Jason have developed. And they have like this world map that has all of the different monsters on it. And so I have like 20 different monsters that I can choose from. So for the first one, I did. I'm also really bad at remembering names of people, let alone monsters. And he has some really great names for them that I cannot remember off the top of my head. But it's this really great swamp creature that is like built of the swamp, and it's got it's like little magical energy sphere within this trunk, and it's got a kind of a Cthulhu mouth thing going. And so like I wanted to give myself like sort of like a good starting point for the series. So like I love detailing trees and noodling on like textural bark stuff. So I figured that would be a good one. And then I just finished the inks for the second issue, and it's cool. This is my first cover series that I've ever done, so it's a little bit weird for me to be like, oh, every month I have a cover now. Until the series. So every month I'm like, oh God, I have a deadline I gotta hit.
That's cool though.
It's great. It's great. I have a couple other things that I haven't been able to announce yet. That I have to make sure I don't accidentally announce. But I'm really excited about them, and another band that I just got to work with, Flesh Vessel. It was another thing of they dropped me a note on Instagram DMs, and I almost missed the DM. So, but that was a lot of fun.
We've got a question here actually. How do you know the cover illustration is finished when it is so detailed and intricate from the Halo 8?
Great question.
That is an excellent question, and honestly, it's something that I have so much. Any editors who happen to be watching, I don't want to be like, I can't do covers, but it is something that is always the benefit of taking a lot of breaks. And any artists who want to get into detailed stuff like this, one, I would say consider investing in some wrist guards. And two, decide, like, take lots of breaks. If you're able to sleep on it, come back, look at it, and decide, like, is this actually done? Am I going to be, just doing details for the sake of detailing? Am I, because with a piece, if I'm spending, like, 3 weeks on something, I'll just get used to working on it. And it's sort of that, like, you put it down and then you just kind of get depressed. And like, I'm not working on this one part of the little detail anymore. And that is a genuinely difficult thing for me. It's something that, like, and I don't, that's why I like mixing different sizes. I didn't like working large formats for a long time, and it's not something that still comes naturally, but because I've been working on it a lot more this year, I've gotten a lot more comfortable with it. But smaller pieces offer the ability to, once you fill the page with details, you have to find a good jumping off point. Like, you have to mentally be able to just put it down. And yeah, you know, I mean, and I think every art has that. Filmmaking has that with editing. You know, you can edit a movie forever. Ridley Scott's been editing Blade Runner since it's been done. George Lucas and Star Wars, you know, like, these are things that they're only done when the artist
now.
Versions
of that have been released.
Maybe what you're saying about taking time away from what you're working. I mean, I think again that's something that transcends just detailed artwork. That's any creative endeavor. You need to take space. Like I work in the film industry as well, and the directors, some of the director collaborators I work with, but particularly one I like long-term collaborating, always fighting for time just to take away from the edit, and it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to kind of sell in. Sometimes people are just like, just get it done, but sometimes you need that like 15 hours away from the edit to come in the next morning, watch it through, and immediately it's apparent what needs to change. But you could have stayed up until like 3 o'clock in the morning just banging your head against the wall.
It's and that's that myopic view of, and a lot of this stems from, if you get older, you get different perspective on something. The thing with art of any kind, like, hopefully your views on things will change as you get older. Hopefully. Because you'll be able to, I mean, unless like you got it right the first time and everybody like this is something that you don't really need to go back and reevaluate depending on the piece. But if you've done a thing that is a little bit more ambiguous, a little bit, you know, more open to interpretation, that interpretation, even from the creative, you know, from the creator's prospect, like, that's going to change day to day, year to year. But if you go back in and start tinkering with it, that changes the meaning of the piece. And if you're trying to change the meaning of the piece to give less ambiguity, it'll just create more ambiguity. Because then it's like, well, what's the real thing? I mean, that's a long way of saying it's done when it's done. Like, I can stop a piece at any point and say, well, yeah, it's done. But I could go on and on and on. It doesn't mean it's going to be better for it, though. So a lot of the times it's just me looking at a piece and say, I may not even be happy with it, but which isn't to say I'm not happy with the things that like I've done, but a lot of the times, if you spend so much time working on something, you lose perspective, you lose objectivity. And you need, I mean, you know, like, I'll show my work to, you know, collaborators, like, you know, when I shared it with you guys, like, here it is. And if I could get feedback on it, and if it's positive feedback, then I'm like, okay, I'm done then. And that's the thing, like, if it's just you alone with your thoughts, it's just, you know, you have to be the one telling you you're done. And sometimes that's hard, you know, finding people that are able to sort of give you a little bit of a sounding board is helpful. It's not like the end all be all for everything, but in every art form, you know, like, if you're making movies for people to watch. You know, you're like, this.
You gotta think about the audience.
For someone.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's a level of, like, you see artists that sort of forget about the audience, and it's like, who is this for? If it's for you, that's cool. You know, I think that art for the artist is awesome. Like, art as a therapeutic measure, I absolutely believe in that. But if you're looking for art for, say, monetary gain or, you know, an audience, it's like, well, the audience is going to want something.
Totally. We've got a question here from outsider Kunst. It is, how did you start out and get your name out there? Did you start with zines and stuff?
For me?
Yeah.
Did I start with memes?
Zines. Am I saying that right?
Oh, zines. Yeah. No, you got that right the first time. I I got into comics the long way around. I worked at a shop in Berkeley, California, when I was living out there, called Comic Relief. And honestly, before that, I hadn't considered comics as a thing that I could do. It's just one of those things, like because I moved around so much, I never really had a really connective tissue to, like communities that, like scenes. And that was really hard for me to sort of feel like I fit in with anything. Like after getting diagnosed with Crohn's disease, my partner and I, like we moved around. Her work like would bring us to different stuff, cities stuff. But I think, and this is not a unique thing. I think a lot of artists and people in general, like if they don't have like a tangible connective feeling to something, it can feel like you're sort of drifting around. And I got really fortunate to have gotten a job that put me in a creative epicenter of comics, like the Berkeley comic scene, like comics with an X, is like, there's like historical value there, and so many people have come out of that scene that are huge now. Keith Knight, who does the Woke series, he was a regular at that shop, and you see people that really were involved in important movements in comics. Whether or not like I really like adhere to what they did. R. Crumb, was in that area. And then it's just gonna be me name dropping all the people that lived in Berkeley in the '60s. But being able to come into that late in the game, in the mid-aughts, when that was really not a big thing. Like, I mean, not even the Image Comics, was developed there, and the Image Comics staff would come in on their lunch break and buy their comics there. And I had no idea who any of these people were. So it's sort of funny to be like, I know them now, but I knew them from learning about them. And anybody who was aware of them at the time would have been like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah.
You got this amazing opportunity to meet all these people. But like, I was just there as like I like horror comics. I like,
So how did you get into it though? Like, did you just start, how did you
what was your like first paid commission? How did that come around? How did that come about?
Yeah. So what wound up happening is I would do conventions with Comic Relief. I did WonderCon and Ape in the Bay Area, and they had a booth at San Diego. And so, like, my first big comic convention was manning the booth at the San Diego Comic-Con. And I love conventions. I've always, like, I used to go to Comdex with my dad in Las Vegas, and that's the computer expo in Las Vegas. And I've always been a fan of the sea of people, and like just trying to you get to see like the weird capitalism of it all, but it's also the entertainment aspect. It's a bizarre, amazing, incredible thing. And you get to there's been some story. *Halt and Catch Fire* is a great show that sort of views Comdex at the beginning of it, but there's this thing with comic conventions that it's the same thing. It's a concert, it's a showpiece, it's art, it's commerce, it's all these different things. And I mean, that's what it is now. And anybody who's been going to Comic-Con for the last, since it got going, will like, yeah, I hate all that. It used to just be about the art and the comics, and it did. But I came into it when it's the show, it's the big show, and I kind of love that.
Yeah.
Because I like the production. I like, but I also.
Did you just to try to get like how you actually found, or I suppose, or how you made it into a career? How did you?
What wound up happening? I'm sorry, I do not tell short stories. I apologize because I do not.
Your stories are great. I want to answer his question, which is how you got going.
So what happened was, I moved to Chicago after a time, omitting a lot of details, and then I got really sick and very. I had a lot of health issues. And then I started finally getting out of the house more and working through my health issues. A lot of it's physical, mental, all of it. And then this whole time I'm kind of doing drawings here and there, and just to keep at it. And I went to C2E2, the comics convention in Chicago, about 8 years ago now. And I met a bunch of artists, and I met Jim Terry, a local artist, and Hillary Barta. And Jim Terry specifically told me about a local drink and draw that was a thing at the time. And then I was like, oh, great, because I brought my portfolio around, and that's the important part of the story that I forgot. And I wasn't trying to sell anything, and I wasn't really sure what to do with it. I was just like, here's my weird drawing. What do you think? And, I showed it to a couple artists, and, they're like, oh, I like this, or this is stuff that you could work on if you're wanting to do things in comics. And Jim saw, I was like, yeah, I mean, if you're local, if you got a drink that you can kind of hang out with people and draw. And that introduced me to the local comics community here. And then I started applying, through that, I got a little bit more confidence to be like, I could just table at these shows. And then I started doing conventions. I don't remember, this is the actual answer, I don't remember what my first commission was, which makes me sad now that I'm thinking of it. But it's also, there isn't any one way to do this. I got lucky / privileged, however you want to look at it, being in the right place, talking to the right people, but that's not to say you have to do comic conventions to do the thing. You have to do anything the way I did it. My entire creative life has been about trying to maintain a certain amount of flexibility because of my health, where I've been living. I've had to reevaluate what my goals were. And not sort of settle for things, but also recognize that what you want out of life when you're young, or what you want out of life at any point, can change based on, your anything at the drop of a hat. And the life that you thought you wanted, you should always, it's helpful to consider alternatives sometimes. I would have never thought as a young person, this is what I would be doing now. But there are people who are in their teens, I want to do this. This is my life. I want to be doing this. And that's tough.
Sorry to interrupt. I've just had a notification flash up. I think there are 30 seconds remaining on this Insta Live. So it's probably going to cut us off. Do you want to jump back
I can hop back on. Yeah.
Okay,
I forgot that
I'm for another 10 minutes or something. My battery.
Yeah, another 10, 15 minutes or something like that. Let's do that. All right.
Okay.
No, let's do another 5 hours.
We'll be back.
All right, we'll be right back.
We'll be right back, guys. Right back. So yeah,
I will try to give short answers.
No, we're digging for answers.
All good, man.
Any other questions? And hopefully my answer to the last one sort of got to the point a little bit, which is to say, I did. I fell into doing this professionally because I got. I've just always been drawing, and I was recognized that this is something that I would love to do professionally. You know, as a thing.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I was going to say, and a couple of little fun questions. You're clearly a fan of horror. Clearly.
Yes.
So, in like a homage to Desert Island Discs, what are your 5 Desert Island horrors?
Oh no.
You can only take 5.
Uh,
Franchises don't count. They have to be individual movies.
All right. So I don't like this. This will always change. This isn't a list that I could you know defend in any capacity. But The Thing, Return of the Living Dead,
Mm-hmm.
Night of the Demons, The Fly. I might want to just be really depressed, but it is such a good movie. It's the 5th one. What's
You introduced me to The Fly, Liam. I'd never seen it before I came to England. I remember when we
Oh God.
we were. Oh my God, this is giving us away how old we are. But
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the other thing is that like there's been
I have a VHS. That's how old. That's how long ago it was.
I honestly I loved.
and you were like, you haven't seen The Fly. What are you talking about? We may or may not be smoking. Yeah.
That's definitely the next question. La Hela 8.
I don't know. I think honestly, it's just one of those like that 5th one is always the thing that kills me because I am incredibly indecisive with lists. I could not pick a favorite anything to save my life, but I loved Beetlejuice when I was in high school. Like I watched Beetlejuice like every day when I was in high school because it hit that mark of absurd and weird and horror, and it's like for me it's like that perfect mix of Tim Burton being at his weirdest, but also a little bit restrained right before he went into full studio mode.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't count that as a horror movie, but it's certainly got elements of that. So, I mean, I guess it would be my 5th, but it's also something I don't have the same connective emotion as I did as a younger person, but that's absolutely something that built how I feel about certain things or how I felt about things at a younger age. But in the same way, like so many movies that came out in the mid 90s, like Starship Troopers and other yeah, I mean, like I saw that in the theaters. I saw Dark City in the theater. I saw Dark City like 5 times because it was just like, oh my God, this is incredible. But, you know, like going back and rewatching it, I was like, yeah, it's good. But at the time, it hit me like a ton of bricks. So it's like visually, it's amazing. The Crow, like, you know, because Alex, I'm not going to, what's his last name? Alex Perez. Like those are like, you could tell like somebody who has like a vision. And I think that's something that I've always struggled with as a creator is what's it like to have a vision of, you know, in filmmaking specifically, if you're a filmmaker with a vision, that sounds awful because you will fight everyone always, all the time to get your vision out there. And if you get a fraction of it on the screen, you will still hate it. Because it's not what you envisioned.
Yeah.
Yes. Directors probably respect the most are exactly auteurs like that are.
Yeah. Kubrick, for example.
Yeah.
Forcing people to do 60, 70 takes.
Right.
Over and over, and drilling them until he got what he wanted. You know.
And that also sounds terrible. Like I like Kubrick.
That's a horrendous working experience.
I respect the art, but like fuck that.
Well, as a follow-up question to the Desert Island Horrors question, La Hela 8 said, of those 5 that you selected, which of those would you most want to do a cover for?
Oh God!
A variant cover for a VHS. Let's go with that.
I mean, I gotta go with The Thing. I mean, and that's an easy one because I already did a Thing piece. Like I don't. It's not that I don't like doing fan art. What's really hard for me to get over is if I love something, it's done. Like somebody else already did it, and my interpretation is just kind of coming at it like a, hey guys, look at me, look at what I'm doing. Which is not to say that that is not a thing that people should do. Like, I love fan art. Some of the best pieces out there are fan art. And it's just anytime somebody's doing it, it's like, God, I wish I felt comfortable doing it. It's still like, I'm a artistic vampire. I need to be invited to things. I need people to be like, hey, you wanna work on something? You wanna do a variant cover for The Thing or something? The reason I did the Thing piece is because the company Printed in Blood, which this was their first book, with the Thing art book, and they put out a call for people to do variant, like you could do whatever you want. It's just something that was inspired by John Carpenter's The Thing, and for me, that was another movie. Like I would just put The Thing on, like Return of the Living Dead. It was just on in the background, like constantly, because I know that movie back to front, and I don't necessarily have to watch it, and you could just sort of like have it in the background of your consciousness. And there's so many moments, like I hadn't seen it in a while now, and I rewatched it, and there was stuff there that like I hadn't, like I've seen that movie so many times, and then you go back and you rewatch it, like, oh man, I never noticed that. And it's amazing that you can still have those sort of epiphany moments with things that you absolutely love. And that's kind of great, like filmmaking, comics, literature, music. There's always something in there that you will have missed, that if you go back and experience it again, if you're not looking at the center, if you're looking around the edges. And I think that's amazing that art is always like that. Everything is always like that. Because we tend to look at things straight on, and finding out what's going on the edge. Like I will always try to put things everywhere in my work, so people can spend a lot of time in them.
Well,
and
no detail.
Yeah. No, great. It's the worst possible thing to do if you're only looking at it on a phone. So that's not great. But yeah, that's again a very long answer to the Thing is definitely something that I would do. I would love to do professionally. Hellraiser is another one that
one of my favorites.
You know, like there's so many comics out there that are great, but like those 80s 90s Hellraiser comics, like somebody that I follow on Twitter, Ewan, forgetting his last name, Ewan McKeown, I think, and I know I'm butchering that last name, but he's an amazing artist, and he shared some pinups from Hellraiser comics, and there's a Kevin O'Neill one, and a Mike Mignola, and they're just gorgeous. And like being able to see what big name comic artists were doing with that world of Clive Barker at the time, because you know it's like these were things that were really big. And I don't pine for things that have passed, but I do think that like it would be amazing if there was a bit more like there's some great horror anthologies that are out now, but because there's so much media around, it's hard to focus on them in the same way. Whereas like back in the day, it was like there was the Hellraiser comics, and there was like, you know, there's like 5 titles instead of 50. And that's just how it is now. And I think that honestly, the world is better for more voices. And I love that there are more voices around to be able to say things. I just wish everybody got equal screen time and equal, I guess, page time, because it is too bad that you can have marginalized creators putting so much work into the same kind of things like horror stories. And I got contacted by another creator who was trying to find a publisher, and they put so much energy into this book, and it's a great book, and I love it, and I'm doing a piece for it, and hopefully they will find a publisher. But it is difficult now. It's always been difficult. That's the thing. It's not. I don't think it's any more difficult than it's ever been. Maybe it just felt easier because there was like 5 guys at the top who made it look easy, and I don't know. I wasn't there. I think that's kind of the other thing. Like but there's a lot of amazing horror material, and that's not an answer to any question though. If there's any other questions that I can actually say on top of
it, there's a very specific question that's come in from Italy. Do you know Andrea Pazienza? I'm butchering that name. Andrea Pazienza?
I don't.
It's from The Raven. Hello from Italy. I have a question for Jonathan. Do you know Andrea Pazienza? I don't know whether Andrea Pazienza is is she an artist?
If anything,
like that, I don't know. We should check her out. If The Raven could answer that, that'd be cool.
Certainly tag me in anything, or throw some examples into my DMs. So I love art, and I'm always about finding new art. I think one of the hardest things for me I've been in isolation for the past 2 years because of the things that have been going on. Like the big elephant in the room, of course.
I didn't hear about
that. What's been going on? Because I have an immune disease, and I'm taking an immunosuppressant, I don't get out much these days. In fact, I went to Challengers Comics out here for the first time in 2 years to see the signing of my buddies Tim Seeley and Jim Terry for their new book from Vault Comics. I'm going to do a little plug for them. West of Sundown. And it's weird. It's basically I hit the pause button for 2 years, and then I hit the play button, and it felt great. It's just everybody aged 2 years. I lost more hair, and everybody's a little bit more stressed. I'm wearing 2 masks, and it's.
I wanted to ask you about that though, because do you find that, like, because you've talked about struggling with your health for a while now, does that go into? Do you find that goes into your art? Like, do you?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think what's funny is, like, I've always done that. Like that my. I draw just because I always feel better when I'm drawing, when I'm creating something. It's not something I will consciously, I want to draw something about my, whatever I'm doing at the time. But there's no way around the subconscious imagery that ends up on the page. I think what's funny is, coming away from the burger piece, I look at that, I'm like, oh yeah, there's stuff in there that I didn't consciously think of. Clearly there's some stuff with my wrists that I'm dealing with. I mean, there's stuff, there's the layers of things. And I like being able to have pieces that I'll put down and I'll pick up and be like, oh yeah, I intentionally put a lot of my thoughts about my Crohn's disease, about my, I have Crohn's disease, thyroid problems, insomnia, all of this stuff. I did have a kind of agoraphobia before I started going out again, about 9 years ago. So being isolated for me isn't new. And that was something that was really strange, that I was able to go back into isolation pretty easily. But being isolated isn't healthy. It's not.
No.
not a long-term thing that I recommend for anybody. And like,
Sure.
I kind of hit my 2-year mark last month, and I'm like, I need to get out again.
Yeah.
And so, you know, begrudgingly sort of like, well, I got to mask up. I got to do the thing. I need to mask for my own health, but it's just stuff that's like, everybody's dealing with so much right now. I mean, everybody's always dealing with something, but now there is just a lot. And being able to have an outlet, like for me, that's always been important, is to have an outlet, a creative outlet that is helpful to sort of exercise out how I'm feeling about things.
Yeah.
So I'm not, and Berger, I think, to bring it all back around, is a great example of somebody that does not have a good outlet.
Yeah. Exactly.
Doesn't necessarily make the best choices.
Right. And, I mean, but it's being able to have an outlet to be able to tell a story about making choices, making the wrong choices, and creatively working with that. And, like, so much of horror is experimenting in psychology, all of these things of like what makes people tick. Like, how do we feel about things? And there's so much that can go in, and especially if, opposing viewpoints or opposing lifestyles, and how somebody views something in one way will not be the same for somebody else. And I love that about horror. I love that, like, that's always been the thing of, like, horror is something that, like, is able to speak to so many different cultures and people in their own way, because it's like, I understand you better because I know what you're not necessarily afraid of, but like what you choose to put into your horror, as like, what's your boogeyman? What's the thing? And that grows and changes throughout time, and it's I love that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I reckon we've got time for maybe like one more question, and an interesting one from Lahela 8, and she says, "Does it make it hard when your creative outlet is also your work?" Which I think is an excellent question.
Yes.
We'll make this the last one, and then
my phone's gonna die.
Yeah, Ben's phone's gonna die.
Yeah, if my phone dies, thanks everyone.
Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you again soon. But yeah, I mean, I've been really fortunate to work with collaborators that are comfortable with me doing my own thing. Not every job is going to allow that kind of outlet. So I think that is something that's important. If you are an artist that needs to get things out of them, like I genuinely do need to just sketch something that has nothing to do with anything, and that's not something that I could get hired for all the time. So if there's a job that is like, I did, for the work, I did motion graphics for a long time as freelance, and one of the things that was really difficult for me is working on projects that have zero creative value to me as a person. I love being creative with my work of anything. So I'll try to still put creative energy into it, but it's not the same as like something that really speaks to my emotional state. And I have, I have a lot of motion graphics that will speak to that. Like, is it not my emotional state? But it's always like, if you can find work that you can get hired for to really still feel like the artist that you want to be while also doing personal projects, that's very helpful. And I found that really very helpful.
Keeping that balance. Sure. Well, dude, I have to say, this has been truly illuminating and wonderful. Like, honestly, genuinely wonderful to listen to you and
man,
hear about.
We should do a weekly fireside chat.
Honestly, it is one of those things. Like I'm 40 now, and I feel like that's. I guess I should start a podcast. I don't have one yet, but it is certainly something that I have been thinking about because I can't shut up about things once I start talking about them. But
I'd listen.
That's good. That's good.
But if anyone's on here hasn't pledged on Burger yet, please do check it out. If you're into body horror comics, if you like Jonathan La Mantia's work, we've got obviously the variant cover available and his prints available. So check it out. I'm sure most of the people that are still on here are already signed up. But,
absolutely. And if you're not already, go follow Jonathan La Mantia at La Mantia. That's across all your socials.
No, I did the thing where I'm bad at being able to get my name out there in certain capacities. So like it's at Jonathan La Mantia, my full name on Instagram, which you'll be able to see on this feed. At JL Comics on that. I'm really bad with that. JL Comics on Twitter.
Yeah.
And then nobody's really on my Facebook page, but I'm JL Comics on my Facebook page as well.
At JL Comics. And
I'm thinking we might have to get you to do a series of variants for us, Jonathan, so that we can have an excuse to get you back on here.
100%. And also, you've got a website, jonathanlamantia.com.
I do.
Right?
jonathanlamantia.com.
Check out all his sweet artwork.
And I'll, I do. I will be having like original art sales soon. That's
a question. What happens with the original art? We haven't actually chatted about that. What happens to the original variant that stays in your vault?
I burn them all. I just tear them up and then I just burn them all. No, I just kidding. No, I actually, there was a gag that I did while working on this one. I did a printout and then I tore up the printout.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, I was like,
no, I have all my originals. Because I'm not doing conventions right now, I've sort of got this stockpile of originals that I've been meaning to put out for sale online. And I have a newsletter that you can sign up for on my website and on my link tree that once I get around to being up for mailing things, because I have a hard time with getting all of the stuff together for the post to get, and it's also difficult with the way that things are now with the post office. Right now I'm having to limit a lot to just U.S. shipping, which sucks. But again, a long answer of I will eventually be doing online original art sales.
Awesome.
Soon.
Cool. Watch this space.
And I'll be doing a time lapse of the little zombie thing that I've been sketching during this, and I'll post on my Instagram.
Awesome.
Soon.
Amazing. Well, dude, thank you so much for taking the time.
Hey, thanks for having me, and thanks everybody for joining us.
Yeah, that was sweet. 100%. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Instagram Live World. Thank you for joining. And
see you later, man.
Yeah, see you later. We will see you all very soon.
Awesome.
Bye.